friends, this is gonna be an itemization guide for newer players, and I've made a tier list on what I think are the best traits in the game, and it was done on a stream, so you guys can check that out. But yeah, this is gonna be mostly focused on the itemization because I think many new players don't realize that you can just play whatever trait you want and pivot on T10 portal if you have the right items, but you can never change your items. You can change your units, you can't change your items. So you might as well, play into the trait that does what you want. And the thing is, that goes on to memorizing what T10s are good and whatnot, but honestly, if you're around like 1200, 1100, many times picking in trait for your items is the best thing and the best course of action. Once you get more advanced, you can start picking the best unit and so on. But if I were a newer player, what I would recommend is just picking a trait that you think is powerful, like say fairy, aquatic water, amorphous, sound, anything you really want to learn, and forcing that trait every single game, trying to get the right regions, taking note of what the right portals are, taking note what T10s are strong, which ones are weak, which ones are going to get you killed, which ones are not, that type of stuff. And then you'll get used to it, and then you'll know when not to play it, you'll know when to play it, and moving on to another trait and trying it out, seeing if you make it work for yourself. So I put a couple of traits I think are fine for newer traders to try, although I would probably move sound down if I were recommending something. I would probably move this up because it's easier to play. But I think learning all these traits is valuable in the course of understanding the game fundamentally. Now, the first trait I'd recommend players learn in general, and I put this based on my tier list, so I kind of went down the line. I forgot to include ground, but ground is very similar to fighting, so we can just talk about it when we get there. First thing you understand is fairy, or that you should probably understand. First trait you should understand is fairy, and fairy is quite easy. You always want to make razor claw, razor fang with these two items for the most part, because those are the most capped out items in the game in terms of damage output. You essentially triple your damage whenever you have these two items, as long as they do not have a Rocky helmet. And you might think, what if they do have a Rocky helmet? What happens then? Well, that's when you get to traits that can potentially counter fairy, because one of the main counters is making a Rocky helmet, which means that you should also make one yourself if you can. And the other main counter is using shiny charm spam. And another thing I put inside is if you have a Mimikyu, it's good pattern to know Mimikyu cover band shiny charm. I already talked about that in my tournament video where I played that combo and I won the lobby with it. Right. So just knowing how to play AD is super important. And, this is the most streamlined way of playing the game. You typically pick your T10. You can pivot from your T10 to your T20. Say you got an Azelf early game and you find an Amorous later and you don't have the items, you can move your items. If you have items for both, just use items for both. It's very simple. Psychic, very complex game plan. I don't really recommend it as a newer player, but it was high on my tier list, so I should just include a guide anyway. Basically, you want to play to roll for unknowns around stage 10, or stage 9 or under, sorry. Before stage 10, which is stage 9 or under, you have better unknown pools, a better unknown pool. So you can actually get more unknown D, W, F, and G and stuff that you really want. You can't get unknown F after stage 10 anymore. It just gets removed from the pool. So you really want to fish these unknowns early, which is why doing it's good. And then what you want to itemize for Psychic is just Aqua Soldu, Psychic Stone, Grookey for the infinite. You put in a light spot. You don't even need Soldu if you don't have it in a light spot. You can also replace this with Specs, so you can have this instead. But you really want the Aqua combo with this, so you can replace this item. The other thing you really want is a Rocky helmet. This is the other critical item. You need Rocky helmet to play Psychic. You need Rocky helmet to play Psychic. It's very, very important. And the next most important thing is making crit set, but I don't really value that because you can also just run AD set on the Kadabra and it works just as well. You don't actually need the Grookey thing either. I can actually, in terms of priority, you need the Rocky helmet more than this stuff, so I can actually move this forward. So This is the priority list. So you need this first before you think about the other stuff. For Aquatic, you don't really consider playing Aquatic unless you open like water and Aquatic. You don't really consider it unless you open like something like this, War Turtle, and then you can pivot that into a late game Drizzile. Or the alternate game plan is to play alongside Ice, and this is the more simple game plan, by the way. Aquatic, Water, Ice all have overlap, and you can still play the Drizzile stuff, but you really want to pick up an early game Lapras or like Aquatic Pokemon that can carry you. It could also be a Quillfish. These mons are very, very bulky alongside a Rocky Helmet, pretty much unkillable, and they're very, very broken. You'll basically just win fights from just having these mons. They're just very hard to beat in this early game. And these items also incidentally help you if you hit a love disc, because now if you have a love disc, then your specs and your Rocky Helmet can also share value with other mons. And Pinurchin is also very, very strong in Aquatic as well. So all these mons really benefit from having this Rocky Helmet. And what I recommend with the Rocky Helmet is either a Green Orb, an Assault Vest, with a Power Lens combo, especially if you're playing Ice to troll some of the casters, or even something as simple as Rocky Helmet with Stardust and Aqua can be good. And I highly recommend just having some extra like healing alongside the Rocky Helmet. But you really, really need the Rocky Helmet. It's the most important item for the straights. So you need that. And then for your late game, you want to pivot into your specs pads Drizzile. But if you don't have that yet, you can run Ice Cream, or you can run Cure. If you hit Kyurem, you can also just run Kyurem instead. Articuno, obviously the same thing. It'll let you play very similarly. See how these items are very similar between Ice and Aquatic and Water Aquatic? That allows them to play very together, overlap wise, and you can just kind of flex into either or. Steel Artie. This is a line similar with Electric. I'm going to move Electric up by one because these are all kind of like together. If you hit an early Magmarizer or Cooking Pot, you really should consider it. Same with XP Share. These are items that you should just consider playing Steel with. And these work really well with Flame Orb. So you gotta memorize like Flame Orb Magmarizer. Magmarizer gives you speed whenever you're burning and stops you from taking fire damage. Flame Orb burns you and doubles your base AD. It doesn't double your raw AD. So let's say I had a Red Orb with it. It wouldn't give you 20 attack from the Red Orb, for example. But it would give you, if Porygon has 25 base attack, then it would give you 50 attack plus the 5 from it. So 55 attack. Plus the 30 speed from this, and plus the 5 attack from here. So this would give you like 60 attack based on my calculation from earlier. It is very, very nasty. So that's why you should look for these spots. And then when you have Steel, you typically want to put the Steel on. So if you have this opportunity to, you put the Metal Coat on your Porygon, or you put if you have the Cooking Pot. Cooking Pot gives you 10 speed every time while you're burning. It's weaker than Magmarizer by a little bit in my opinion, but it's still fine to play Flame Orb Cooking Pot. The only issue is that you have to be burning in order to use the Cooking Pot. Magmarizer stops you taking burn damage, so this counts. You can actually use all three of these together. But if you have like safety goggles, you can't go Flame Orb Cooking Pot safety goggles because it doesn't let you burn anymore. So that's something important to know. Now, Electric. I think Electric's quite strong. It's very similar to Artie. You just itemize it the same way. You typically have like Magmarizer and Cooking Pot and stuff if you're playing Electric because you're having Artie as a side synergy. And typically you want to build towards like Shiny Charm, Rocky Helmet type of stuff. I didn't really include that, so I'm gonna put that in. This is why I'm double checking my stuff. You really want that type of stuff, but you don't just want to make like traditional crit stuff. But with Electric, you can also, I think this is more like the Xurkitree thing is a little bit stupid. That's the first thing I thought about when I saw Electric, but you really want to consider like these type of items when you're playing Electric. This works a lot better because Upgrade procs 3 times when you're playing Electric. Now Upgrade isn't really this, but it's like one of those items that you can use while playing Electric. This is like this. You hit Xurkitree with like XP Share, and then you can share the like Flame Orb, Specs, Loaded Dice. Oh, you don't share Loaded Dice, but you can put Loaded Dice on it. You can put Crit on it. These stuff are still fantastic when you're playing Electric. And then obviously, good old Crit Spell is very good in Electric because you can hit stuff like Zapdos. which will be very strong with crit spell, and you can hit stuff like well, even Zekrom, but you can hit stuff that is good with crit spell in the mid game. Like Amoga was what I was gonna say. Like these mons are very, very good with that stuff. And then on the topic of electric can work with field if you hit these guys, which are quite strong. Then that goes into a different category of field stuff. And you typically don't want to itemize these guys too much. You just want to put like shiny charms or max revives on them so they are more sustainable. Sound, you just want an infinite mana loop. The infinite mana loop is like a strategy that I used for a long time. It basically utilizes anyone with 60 PP. So like Dwaki or Meloetta are the only two right now that are standouts for low PP usage. And efficient Banana and Aqua Sodu on it so that they cast as fast as possible, infinite as fast as possible. If you have a light spot, it works even better. So yeah, this is just your setup. You don't even need specs as much, but I like specs a lot. Shiny Charm goes into defensive stuff, so I'm not sure why it's over here. But you put it on one of your tanks. You typically want like your good old tank items like this, and then you're good to go. If you can, you also would like a Big Eater belt too. But yeah, if you have these items, then you would play into sound, or you can play into sound. And for your early game, for sound, you really want to hit Chatot nowadays. If you don't hit Chatot, then you just want to get your tank items and just put the Aqua Sodu on a mon that can like utilize them early. So something like even like a Pillow Swine. Like I'm not even kidding. Like can really hold these items for a little bit. Or any caster type. Now I recommend learning sound as a newer player because understanding how sound works and which carries you can use with these items is very cool and important. But at some point, you don't want to play it if you're trying to climb. But again, these are good to learn. Same with Gourmet. Gourmet is actually a stronger trait than sound, and learning it is very important. So I recommend Big Eater Belt, Flame Orb, and Safety Goggles, and it works very well because you can hit either Spinda or Veluza. I'm gonna put them in real quick to basically give dishes to your Flame Orb. Veluza actually increases your base attack, which means that it actually doubles the Veluza thing or Veluza proc for Flame Orb. And Spinda makes your mons dizzy sometimes or sleepy sometimes. And it's quite good with the Safety Goggles. So this is why like this is kind of just the known best set for Gourmet. And with Fairy being around and a bunch of CC effects, it's just nice to have Safety Goggles on your carry. For fighting, typically I only play fighting when I have a good opener, like a Monferno opener. And then I have like Muscle Band, Rocky Helmet type of stuff ready to go. And typically you want to go into like this defensive stuff. So Rocky, Assault Vest, Muscle Band. Or if you can, set up like a Machamp with like Rocky, Power Lens, Shell Bell to really like troll the AP teams, because you're going to lose to a lot of AP teams late game. So that's like kind of what I think of when I think of fighting. And then another trait I would recommend to learn, again, not necessarily, these are not necessarily strong traits, but they're good to learn for the understanding the game, is Flora. And it's good to make really hard defensive items. So Rocky, Assault Vest, Green Orb, King's Rock on a chest bin can hold, like these three can hold for, if you just have these three items, can hold for a very long time. And you can even put these on your, like the Green Orb on your backliner, like their Dwaki. But if you hit like a Carnivine, you can actually put your AP items on your Carnivine, or you can put your AP items on a Floragato to hold for your Dwaki for the late game. So there's stuff you can do with that. You can also obviously itemize with good old crit spell, or regular crit, depending on what you feel like. Either way, is also good for a Floragato. So yeah, there's a couple more traits that I think are important, but I'm gonna leave this maybe for a part 2 or for a later video. But I just want to do a quick rundown on like this stuff, because I think a lot of people struggle with itemization and such. So there you go. There's a quick little dirty guide on it.